Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success, and in our current climate, maximize safety while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. On today's episode of Tent Talk, we're talking with Corrina Smith of Columbia Farmers Market and the Missouri Farmers Market Association about managing what appears to be 2020, the extended version. Hey everyone, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I've spent years as an on-site farmers market manager, and I'm the education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of the Farmers Market Pros community and Intense, the Farmers Market Conference.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer, marketing director for Farmers Market Pros, and the logistic coordinator for Intense, the Farmers Market Conference 2021, coming up in just 7 weeks.
Holy moly.
Whoa. 7 weeks. It's going to be live online March 15th through 18th. And remember, early bird pricing registration ends this Sunday, January 31st.
Ooh.
So reserve your space now.
Get that spot.
Right. Don't wait. You will no longer be an early bird if you wait till after Sunday.
You'll just be a bird. A bird with regrets.
That's right.
All right. Well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. Today we are chatting with Corrina Smith, Executive Director of the Columbia Farmers Market and President of the Missouri Farmers Market Association. Welcome, Corrina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
We always like to start talking to farmers market folk about how you wound up with this crazy job. So if you could just give us a little background of what led you to your involvement in farmers markets.
Yeah. So food has been, it's been the majority of my life since day one. I grew up in rural Missouri, and my mom had a big backyard garden that she fed our family of 6. And then I started waiting tables, and I was in the restaurant industry during my college years. And then I moved to New Orleans in my mid-20s, and that's where my passion for local food really started to develop. I became a big shopper of the Crescent City Farmers Market there, started backyard gardening, and continued to work in the restaurant industry there. And then I ended up getting a job at a restaurant where I met my future husband, who was a chef. So then food became even more of my life. Ironically, he was also from Missouri, and we eventually decided to move back home to be closer to our families. When I was in New Orleans, I was managing an artisans market, and I think my passion of local food and my experience in that was what really drew me to the opportunity with the Columbia Farmers Market, and that's where this crazy adventure started. Is when we moved back to Columbia, and I saw that posting for the director for the Columbia Farmers Market, and then it's just continued to grow and develop over the years.
That's awesome. Yeah, all of us here in this room have a background in food too. Bridget and Kat both worked a lot in restaurants, or Kat owned a restaurant, and it's so nice to, when I think market managers have that really well-established background in food, it kind of, helps.
Well, food and customer service, there's a lot of things about restaurant. When we look for staff, actually, a lot of times I'll look at, somebody will send me a resume, and they'll have taken all of their restaurant experience off there so that they look cool, so they look professional. And I'll say, okay, there's some gaps here, and have you done anything else? Ever waited tables? They're like, oh, yeah, for sure. And that's actually so much more relevant to us than a lot of other experience, because that customer service and knowing that the curtain has to go up at a certain time and things all have to be timed to come out at the same time is really important.
Yeah, and also your experience in local food. New Orleans is such a cool local restaurant scene. It makes sense that kind of, added to your love for food and local food. Can you tell us a little bit about your current role with Columbia Farmers Markets? Like, how many markets do you run, and what's kind of the day-to-day operations of your position there?
Yeah, so when I started, I was hired in 2013. And at that point, it was just a part-time market manager position. And over the years, I've expanded into this full-time job where, I eventually was promoted to executive director, kind of created that position for myself. So I actually, as of the beginning of this year, we have another full-time staff person, but up until this year, I've been the only full-time employee. So I've managed, basically everything, all the vendor applications to all the bookkeeping and financials, all the marketing, grant writing, grant management, staff management. And then last year, we also have been in the process of building what we're calling an agriculture park here in Columbia. And we just finished phase 1 of construction of this gorgeous pavilion and an urban farm. So we're partnering with a local organization here in Columbia called this Columbia Center for Urban Ag, or CCUA. And so it's this beautiful collaboration. And 2019, we saw a 72% increase in customer traffic when we moved into that pavilion.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then 2020.
You had to kick them all out, right?
But so, yeah, I mean, basically everything that it takes to run a business, I'm the one that takes care of that. And it just continued to grow and develop and add programming and staffing and the expansion to the pavilion over the years. And it's just one market that I manage.
Gotcha.
There's 3 other farmers markets here in Columbia, or 2 other, a total of 3 here in Columbia, but the Columbia Farmers Market is the only one I manage.
But is that just one day a week, or are you on multiple days per week?
So at the peak of the summer, like early spring to early fall, we also have 2 weekday markets. Those are significantly smaller.
Sure.
So Saturday, we have probably peak summer, 65 or so vendors. And our weekday markets are, 5 to 10 vendors. So it's drastically different. But yeah, we are open 3 days a week. And we're a year-round farmers market too. So every Saturday into the winter.
How do you cope with that? So at the pavilion, are you undercover?
Yeah. So phase 1 of the pavilion, eventually there'll be 98 covered stalls. Right now, a third of those are covered, and then the next phase of construction will build wings for the pavilion. But with the winter market, we have these drop-down vinyl walls that enclose the pavilion. We just got heat installed this winter, so that's really exciting. But last year was our first winter in the pavilion, and before that, we were in an old shopping mall. We would kind of like set up down the large like walkway corridor kind of there. So
it could kind of be sheltered. What have your protocols been this year for operating markets in your area due to COVID? And then just thinking about for your winter market, we've been talking to a lot of farmers market managers who have had to move into an enclosed area, which is usually like making it less COVID safe, but there are ways to do it. So what are the regulatory agencies do you work with? And how is that working for you at your market?
Yeah, so in the state of Missouri, only for a month or so, like back in April, is when the state had really any regulations. So we had a stay-at-home order for, I don't remember, I think it was a month, but
I'm sorry.
Wait, what?
We've been in a stay-at-home order for almost a year now, so excuse us. Okay, so a little less.
In Columbia, like we've had pretty strict regulations the whole time, but and I think Columbia did a stay-at-home order, and then the state had one, but in late May or early June, all of that ended. There's been like Columbia itself has had a mask ordinance since early summer. The state does not have one. Columbia has gathering restrictions. The state doesn't have anything. So here in Missouri, it's really county by county on where the regulations are. So Columbia kind of is up there with some of the larger cities in Missouri, like Kansas City and St. Louis. Most of the other places and counties in the state don't really have much. So like what the regulations we've had, we've stayed open every single Saturday, open to the public. We have limited the crowds, and it took a while to figure out how to manage an open air market and limit how people come in. We're really fortunate to have had this pavilion, and so we could kind of barrier off where people could entrances, and we had like one entrance, one in, one out. And we had staff with walkie-talkies at the exits communicating with staff at the entrance. We also did a kind of a janky curbside pickup in the spring, where we put together anybody that had any kind of pre-ordering system and put all those resources on our website. And we had vendors send all of those orders to us in a Google sheet, and we put that together and organized it for a drive-through pickup on Saturdays. With the winter market, so since we are enclosing our pavilion, we knew we'd lose customers. There aren't any restrictions on how many people can come in, but we also, knowing that we were going to lose people, knowing that we couldn't really socially distance our vendors as much in this enclosed space, we decided to bring back a curbside pickup, but not
less
janky
janky
this time.
Less janky.
So we purchased the local food marketplace platform, and so we have a centralized online store and a walk-up kind of curbside pickup. Like managing cars was probably the most difficult thing with the drive-through this spring, and just put a lot more pressure on our staff to manage that. So one of the buildings we have just recently finished in this new ag park is this schoolhouse that for kids and for the Columbia Public Schools, it's an educational building, but we're not going to be able to use it till kids can come and have field trips at the park. So right now we're using that as the space to aggregate the orders and people walk up to that. Very fortunate to have a building during the winter. That was one of the things we had to figure out how to do, because products would freeze if we were outside underneath a tent, trying to do some kind of pickup this winter. So fortunate we had that space, and it's been going really well. We started that in November, and I think it's something we'll probably continue to use in the spring.
Smart. Yeah. Isn't that one of the trickier things, is figuring out for how long do we have to plan these things? Yeah. It's the whole, murky crystal ball thing that's been one of the biggest challenges, I think, for everybody. It's, let's see, it'll all be better in the spring. Oh, wait, no, it won't.
Yeah. And how long can we make janky systems work? Yeah. We can just kind of hold this together, and then we're oh no, it needs to be a little bit less janky because it's going to be a while.
We've even just this week been okay, these, daisy chained together policies and, random signs we've been using for months. It's kind of okay, well, even though there is a little light at the end of the tunnel, we need to upgrade. And it's kind of dang, we should have done this 7 months ago, but we thought that we'd be able to get away with it.
We thought we wouldn't need it for very long, so here we are. But
that's life in the farmers markets. and with all that going on, with having to buy the platform and all the other things that you have to do to make this work under these conditions, I know a lot of markets are finding that that's financially daunting for the market operators themselves, not necessarily so much for the vendors and farmers. In our case, at least, farmers' income is up in many cases. More people are kind of tuning in. The regular food systems are a little messed up, and so we're attracting more people to farmers markets, but funding market operations has been tough. So how does that look for you now? I noticed you've got a donate button on your website. Is that getting any traction?
We've gotten some traction. More than we probably ever have before, but we've never really actively asked for donations before. We're a 501c4 nonprofit, so we're not tax deductible. So it's not that enticing unless you really care about the market to donate. But as far as like the funding for everything we did this spring cost us thousands and thousands of dollars with the signage and staff and just, I mean, hand sanitizer, masks, all of the supplies. Fortunately, we received the EIDL grant, and we're receiving some CARES Act funding from the county. So that's basically covering just about everything from last year. We did have to cancel our big fundraiser, which is our farm to table dinner, which usually brings $10,000 in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Did you figure out like a virtual thing, or did you just bypass that this year?
We just completely bypassed it. To be completely honest, last year was just so overwhelming to keep the market open.
Sure.
It was like constantly changing regulations week after week. And we dealt with, I'm sure this problem is not unique to us, but just like fielding social media complaints, would take a week, and
those complaints were worse than they used to be.
Yeah.
Right? There was no energy to now put drive-through farm to table dinner on. And so it just, fortunately, the IDL grant kind of, covered that. And then the CARES Act funding is really helping cover the new curbside for last year. So going forward for this year, we are charging customers a small fee to utilize the curbside pickup.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's
I thought you were
nice.
going to say you're charging them to come in. We keep threatening to do that.
I'm like, we're going to do that.
Purchase
For
or
you,
something.
$20.
Yeah, right. So the customers are actually paying for the curbside.
So the customers pay per order, and then we do pass along the credit card processing fees to the vendors. So we deduct that from their payout.
Great. What's your normal fee structure for vendors? Do you have a flat fee or a percentage of sales, or?
It's a flat fee, and then they can purchase a permanent booth to be in the same spot every week. And there's kind of additional add-ons, but there's a flat membership fee.
Gotcha.
But we don't charge percentage of sales.
So, and you're not adding any kind of percentage onto the drive-through or the curbside stuff for the vendors? They're just covering the credit card fee.
Just the credit card fee, unless if they chose to only use the curbside and not sell in person as well, we will charge them a percentage of their sales, but that'll max out at what our daily fee is.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
It's kind of in lieu of their daily fee that they would be paying to sell that Saturday.
Right. Do you have many people doing that?
We have a handful. We had. There's a decent amount of vendors, not a decent, out of 80, 5 to 10 vendors that didn't sell at all last year. Most of those were COVID related concerns. And then there were a few that waited, would have maybe started selling in May, but waited until probably July to start coming, just kind of trying to see if numbers would drop in Columbia and just what regulations were. But yeah, some of those vendors that decided not to sell at all and that have product during the winter have started using the online store and come and drop their orders off in the morning.
That's good.
It's helpful. Yeah.
Well, we also wanted to hear a little bit about the Missouri Farmers Market Association, which you are a part of. So what is your role with that? Yeah, so
I'm the president for the association. I've been on the board, I think, since 2015. So I was the secretary for years, and then this year I took on the president's position. Not like I needed anything else to do. But I keep saying this year, last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last year.
It's December 43rd right now, right?
Yeah.
So how long has that association been in existence?
Oh gosh, I would say probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, so that's a long time. There's surprisingly many states that don't have an association, a statewide association, actually. So that's forward thinking that you've had one for that long. And then have you seen, I think you told me when you and I were corresponding that you've seen a decrease in the number of members this year, or just?
I think so the kind of the biggest perk our association offers is a really discounted liability insurance for farmers markets.
Nice.
And so kind of the majority of our members join to get that. Outside of that, our focus is just education for market managers. So we normally have an annual conference every year, and so kind of between the insurance and the conference are the main things that we've been able to focus on. I don't think we saw a huge decrease in actual members in 2020. Most markets remained open. So any of them that were using that insurance and joining our association in the past probably still did in 2020.
And then the benefits that you were offering, how did that change in 2020? Did you get into any advocacy work in terms of dealing with, it sounds like the state actually wasn't all that active anyway, but in dealing with any of the municipalities about regulations and any input on that, or letting managers know what they needed to do? Or
yeah, and those that first month of March and April, we with Columbia Farmers Market still being open, a lot of the markets at that point hadn't opened for their season yet, because a lot of them aren't year round. Like myself and some other board members kind of became a resource for those markets as they were getting ready to open, and what steps they could do to open in a safe manner. But I would say probably by the time most markets opened, which would be May, the state was kind of starting to quote unquote normalize or get back to normal. And so there wasn't that much that other markets were reaching out to us for after kind of their main seasons kicked off. I did see some other markets in the state that did some pretty, especially they're more the year-round markets that did some really cool adaptations to keep their markets running. Like in Springfield, they did a drive-through farmers market. They had a pavilion, and so I think they would kind of face out in the pavilion, and customers would drive through. And then quite a few jumped online and did some kind of curbside or online systems there early on. So, but I don't, from what I observed and from the market managers I talked to, a lot of markets were able to open as normal throughout the year.
Yeah, it sounds like. So what time of year is your conference usually? It sounds like that's another big benefit for your association.
Our conference is the first week of March. So that was last year. I think it was the last meeting I went to. And then it was man.
That's how I felt with our conference. I think it was the last gathering thing.
Well, yeah, we did ours the very
February.
first part of February.
Yeah.
And then I actually did make it to the Washington State Farmers Market Conference, and
somewhere
midway through that conference, Washington State pretty much closed down.
Yeah.
And then I scooted down to the California Small Farm Conference in San Luis Obispo, and that's where it really just went to pieces between the Thursday that I arrived and the Sunday that I left. It was okay, it's all over now.
I know, I'm am I going to have to drive up there and pick you up?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of squeaking by while we can. But you guys were able to have your conference last year before everything.
Yeah, we had a really great conference. So it was the last thing that I think I had planned. So.
The last thing that went according to plan.
Right?
I don't remember those things.
Hanging on after that. Yeah. So what are you doing this year for a conference?
Well, we're partnering with you guys.
Yay!
Yeah, Kat was that's a leading question.
Yeah, right.
Tell us about it.
So we're really excited about that. One, to have someone else to plan it, but
gotta love that, right? let's do that next year.
But, to really offer our members some really new and interesting topics and opportunity to be able to just kind of see what other markets are doing across the country. We usually have like a guest speaker from either like Farmers Market Coalition. We had someone from the Michigan Farmers Market Association one year. But yeah, I'm excited to be able to offer this for our other markets in the state. I've been fortunate enough to go to like a few out of state, like the direct marketing ag conference. And I've really enjoyed that, just being able to meet people that are doing what we do, right?
Yeah, it's so crazy, right? To meet somebody that really gets you.
Yeah.
Understands your weird job.
Yeah.
We find that the biggest thing. So we'll have Farmers Market Coalition doing 2 afternoons of our conference. Mm-hmm. So the state associations will still have access to them, and then the variety of speakers that we do throughout the 4-day conference will be great. But the other thing that we've worked really hard at is finding a platform where we can still do all that networking, because that's, in addition to the experts on stage, that's such a huge part of what people get out of conferences, I think, is exactly that, finding people that actually understand us and what we do and the crazy multitasking nature of our job and different kinds of talents that you have to have. So we're excited to have Missouri represent.
Yeah, so Corrina is so for our listeners, you're sending your members, or you've signed them up to take the Farmers Market Conference, the Intense Farmers Market Conference.
Yeah, she's doing the Big Tents packages, which saves a lot of money if you've got a group that's associated, that's related to each other, so that they can send a whole bunch of folks from Missouri.
Yeah, so sending your whole group. I feel like that's, not just our conference, even though ours is the best, but just having like a group of people that you work closely with and that are in your area kind of all get the same information, and they can learn the same things, and then you're all kind of working on the same page.
Yeah, and can discuss that afterwards. Mm-hmm. Everybody heard this same speaker. Yeah. Now let's talk about what does that mean for us here on the ground, and how do we implement that?
And it's always so energizing too. When I was working as an adjunct professor, like in the academic world, anytime we'd go to like WSCA, that was like the West Coast Communication Association that we'd go to, we'd always get back and we'd just all be like buzzing and just like so excited and wanting to be writing new curriculum, or it just kind of gives everybody a shot in the arm and kind of an inspirational thing. And I think especially after surviving last year, it's like we all kind of just need to be able to vibe out with the people that get us and, commiserate, but also inspire each other and share helpful tips. So it'll be fun to be able to connect with people who, are the Missouri counterpoint of people from across the country that have been through the same thing, just from a different perspective. And also it's always interesting here in California, we have such different rules and regulations from the ag department or having to do with public health things. So it's always curious to hear how different markets across the country are experiencing those things. The virus is the same, but we all have different ways to approach it and manage it. So
it's been really interesting though, because the virus is something that's, even though there's really big differences in how various states are handling it, there's still also some things that are really the same across the whole country in how are you dealing with customers that do or don't want to wear a mask? And so there's been some real common interest too. So this year of all years, we can use a shot in the arm.
Yeah.
Figuratively and literally.
True. True. Yeah, I'm excited to have your group as to be a part of the conference, just to, hear what you guys have to say.
Hope that we have more people attend too than our, I don't know if you guys are feeling this way, but that you may have more attendance than you would have had with the in-person, but
totally.
It's usually 2 to 4 hour drive for a lot of people to come to. We usually hold it somewhere in central Missouri, and so that's also a challenge for our market managers, or to stay overnight and have to come up with the funds to pay for a hotel and food and travel. So I hope that we see a larger group than we have at the in-person conferences attend.
Yeah, we're feeling that too. We were kind of sad at first that we weren't going to have an in-person conference, but the flip side of that has been that so many more people are going to be able to attend because you don't have the travel costs to San Diego and the hotels and that amount of time off as well, which can be really hard for people in the market business.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice to see the turnout and to see people who we haven't seen at the conference before and get to hear their sides of what's going on with their market and get to share with them, all the information that our speakers give. And it should be very exciting.
It will be exciting.
Yes.
7 weeks from now.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Corrina. It's been great talking to you today.
Yeah, it was nice to hear how your markets kind of came together and what you guys are up to right now. And we'll be interested to kind of follow you along and see how everything works out and see you at the conference too.
Yeah, and send us some pictures of your pavilion. Yeah, we're always, in San Diego, it's sunny and beautiful right now. So we are like completely alien to the concept of having produce freeze outside of a Saturday market.
Have to have a heater at your market.
Yeah.
There's some hot times in the summer, though, that a pavilion would be nice.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah. But we'd love to see what your setup looks like.
Yeah, I'd be happy to send you some stuff. And you can also go to buildthistown.org to check out. That's the site for the pavilion and the ag park, and just kind of the fundraising and construction updates are all on there.
Oh, awesome. I will definitely check that out.
Yeah, ag park altogether just sounds so cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Really
awesome.
exciting.
All right, Corrina, well, we will keep in touch and see you soon in 7 weeks.
Yeah,
that's right.
Conference.
Yeah, 7 weeks.
Yeah, thanks for talking to us.
Thanks.
All right, we'll see you next time. Bye. Farmers markets are all about community, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. To learn what's happening from people just like you in various parts of the country, or share what's happening in your area, we have terrific conversations and people sharing resources over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. Please find us there, answer the 3 qualifying questions, and join the group. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros, or send us an email at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. If you're just getting started in farmers markets, check out our Vendor 101 online course. And to go deeper, register for our annual Intense the Farmers Market Conference, live online, March 15th through 18th, 2021. Learn more at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks so much for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us and others how you're enjoying Tent Talk. If you're listening on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market Podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week. Tune in.